Hello, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello.
Howdy. Great, thank you.
Hey, I'm meeting on 16 tonight. Yep. Yeah. Mama sits there and watches it every night, you know? Mm-hmm.
All right. I'll wait till 7 o'clock here, but I see we have 10 members, so we're good. All right, Adam, I'll get started in like 10 seconds here. All right, good evening and welcome to the December 1st meeting of the Goffstown Budget Committee. I'm going to start off with the announcement about remote participation. In accordance with Governor's Emergency Order Number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, the Goffstown Budget Committee will utilize the emergency meeting provisions of RSA 91A to conduct meetings through electronic means while preserving, to the extent feasible, the public's right to notice of such meetings and ability to observe and listen contemporaneously. Public access to the meeting by telephone, you would call 603-766-JOIN, that's 5646. So once again, 603-766-5646. Participant code 785-645#. Members of the public experience problems with access to the meeting are asked to call 603-384-3624. Sorry, 3624. And you can watch the meeting live on Goffstown Television, Channel 16, or on GTV's Facebook page, www.facebook.com/GoffstownTV. Facebook will not be monitored for public participation during public comment for this meeting. And I'll start off with a roll call here. Skylar?
Here and alone.
Bill Cordis?
Here and alone.
Greg Flegel?
I'm here and alone.
Joe?
I'm here. My roommates are in the room.
Eileen?
I'm here alone.
Jeff?
I'm here and alone.
Jeff O'Brien?
Yes, here and alone.
Thank you. Did Fred join? Fred Plett? All right, don't see Fred. Dennis Lynch? Let's see. I am here and by myself. Spencer Diaz? And let's see. On Richard Manzo?
Here and alone.
Thank you. Is there a school board rep? I do not see one here. Selectman Lemay.
Here and alone.
Awesome. Thank you. Moving on, we have public comment. If there's any public comment, Derek, what would they do to unmute here?
Oh, Cole, I think you've got Richard Fletcher from the...
Yep. Water Precinct. I'm sorry about that, Richard.
That's okay.
So actually, Cole, the number that you gave at the beginning of the meeting, that is the number that's being utilized by zoning board tonight.
Oh, okay.
The number that we're going to be using is 1-408-418-9388. And the participant code is 132-738-1180. I'll put that up on the screen for everybody real quick. So what I'll do is I'll put up the whole, you should be able to see the entire agenda for tonight's meeting. But this is the public access number for tonight's budget committee if people want to call in. And it looks like Fred Flett has joined since you took the role.
Great. Hi, Fred.
Hello, all. I was selling Christmas trees. I'm a minute late.
Well, thank you. Thank you for bringing the holiday spirit to folks in town here. All right. We'll give folks, if there's public comment, we'll do it after the minutes here. We have 5 sets of minutes on the agenda. If folks, I'm not sure the last time we approved minutes here. So generally someone would make a motion to accept the minutes. There would be a second, and then there would be any discussion on amendments that need to be made.
I move to approve the 10/29/20 budget minutes.
Great. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. I think I heard a second from Skylar. There's a motion from Fred, second from Skylar. Any discussion? All right. Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Skylar?
Here.
Sorry, this would be yes or no to approve the minutes.
Yeah. I understand, Cole. Yes.
Great. Cordis?
Yes.
I'm sorry, there was a little echoey there.
Yeah, I hear it too. My answer is yes.
Greg Flegel? Yes. Joe?
Yes.
Great. Eileen?
Fred, please mute yourself.
Mute myself?
Great. Eileen? I think she's in a technical thing is what I see on the screen there. We'll come back. Jeff?
Yes.
Fred?
Yes.
Dennis isn't on. I vote yes. Spencer isn't on. Richard Manzo?
Yes.
Didn't see anyone from the school board come on. Selectman Lemay?
Yes, sir.
I'm Richard Fletcher.
Yes.
Great. Derek, do you see where echo is coming from here?
I can't tell who has the echo. I know it's, as we go through motions for minute approval, it is kind of difficult to mute and unmute yourself, but it will improve the quality of the meeting for anybody that watches it on GTV or watches it once it's rebroadcast. So if the members could kindly mute their laptop or whatever device they're using when they're not speaking, that'd be appreciated.
Great. Moving on, we have the meeting, the minutes from 11-5.
I'll motion to approve those.
Second.
Motion from Joe, second from Fred. Any discussion there? All right, hearing none, I'll call the roll. Skylar?
Yes.
Bill Cordis?
Yes.
Greg Flegel?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Eileen?
Here.
Eileen, the vote is on the 11-5 minutes.
I'm sorry?
The motion is on the 11-5 minutes.
No, I can't do that. Sorry. I have to abstain.
Okay. Great.
I can't hear
Jeff?
you. Your sound keeps going in and out.
Yep. Jeff?
Yes.
Great. Fred Platt?
Yes.
Dennis isn't here. I vote yes. Spencer Diaz isn't here. Richard Manzo?
Yes.
School board is there. Selectman Lemay?
Yes, sir.
And Richard Fletcher?
Yes.
All right. Passes. There's minutes from 11-9.
Move to approve.
Great. Is there a second?
This is Greg. I will second.
Great. Thank you, Greg. Any discussion there? All right. Hearing none. Skylar?
Yes.
Bill Cordis?
Yes.
Greg Flegel?
Yes.
Joe?
I wasn't there, so I have to abstain.
Eileen?
Abstain.
Jeff?
Yes.
Fred?
Yes.
I vote yes. Richard Manzo? Richard Manzo?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. School Board Selectman Lemay?
Yes, sir.
And Richard Fletcher?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. We have minutes from 11-12. Would entertain a motion on minutes from 11-12.
Cole, I'll make the motion.
Great.
I will
Thank you.
second.
Great. Thank you, Fred. Any discussion there? All right. Motion to approve the minutes from 11-12. Skylar Sund,
Yes.
Bill Cordis,
Yes.
Greg Flegel,
Yes.
thank you. Joe,
I abstain.
Eileen? I'll leave. All right. Jeff,
Yes.
Fred Platt,
Yes.
Dennis isn't here. I vote yes. Spencer Diaz isn't here. Richard Manzo.
Yes.
All right. Selectman Lemay
Yes, sir.
and Richard Fletcher.
Yes.
Thank you. And lastly, we have minutes from 11-19.
Hey, Cole, I just have one amendment to that. I was reading over the vote on the CRF, and when Fred motioned the first time not to approve the CRF, the vote count came out. I believe it was 4-7. When all reality, it should have been like it was only 3 people that voted not to approve the first vote.
I don't have it up right now. Is it just that the tally is off, or is
The
it
tally
recorded
was-
wrong?
The vote wasn't recorded wrong, but the tally was wrong. So it should be 3-8, not 4-7.
All right.
So I'll motion to approve as amended.
Is there a second?
I'll second Cole with the amendment.
Great. Thank you. And that was Selectman Lemay. Any further discussion or amendments there? All right. Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Skylar,
Yes.
Bill Cordis,
Yes.
Greg Flegel,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Eileen, I believe, Jeff,
Yes.
Fred Platt,
I'm just curious why you use my first and last name where other people you don't. Yes.
hey, I have everyone's first name here. Sometimes both come out. I'm not sure how else to put it, Fred. I vote yes. Spencer is in here. Richard Manzo.
Yes.
Do not see anyone from the school board on. Selectman Lemay
Yes, sir.
and Richard Fletcher.
Yes.
Terrific. Thank you all for getting through that. Next on our agenda, we have a vacancy on the committee, and we have a volunteer, Elizabeth DeBrell, who has stepped up to possibly fulfill this role. Derek, could we go over procedure quickly on this?
Okay, yes, great. So you are an elected board, so you, as the budget committee, can appoint someone to fill a vacant elected seat until the next election. So at this point, we have had this position advertised on the town website under volunteer opportunities. Elizabeth graciously came forward to submit a volunteer application, and she's before you for consideration. If the budget committee does appoint, unfortunately, we cannot have her act in a voting capacity this evening. What we would need to do is have paperwork completed. We would send the paperwork for any signatures to all budget committee members, and we'll have you sign it electronically rather than forcing you to come into town hall. Or if it's your preference to come in town hall, we can do that as well. But and then she would be able to be sworn in for the next meeting. But it's really right now it's a decision point for you of I guess hearing from Elizabeth a little bit about her experience, and then the budget committee can make a decision.
Terrific. Any questions? All right. Without further ado, Elizabeth, I would invite you to say a few words about why you're stepping up in your prior experience here in town.
Well, I volunteered just because I don't think it's a good idea to have a vacancy on the budget committee. That's such an important committee at this time of year in budget season. So I thought I would just step up and volunteer for the few months that we have to go until the next election. I served on the budget committee from 2011 to 2017. I was chair. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 years, but I was chair for a couple of years there. And so I know the process. I'm pretty up to speed on what's going on in town. So that's basically why I volunteered. I'm not planning to run for budget committee again in March. I just wanted to help fill this vacancy for the rest of this season.
Awesome. Fred, do you have a question?
No, I have a motion to make to accept Elizabeth DeBrule as a member of the budget committee.
I'll second that.
Was that Richard Fletcher?
Yes.
All right. Any further discussion? All right. Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Skylar,
Accept, yes.
Bill Cordis,
Accept, yes.
Rick Flegel,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Eileen, I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear anything there.
I said,
Jeff?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Thank you. Jeff,
Yes.
Fred,
Yes.
Dennis Lynch isn't here. I vote yes. Spencer Diaz isn't here. Richard Manzo.
Yes.
Don't think. Selectman Lemay.
Yes, thank you, Elizabeth.
And lastly, Richard Fletcher.
Yes.
Terrific. We're unanimous. Thank you for stepping up, Elizabeth. And I would say it's appropriate for you to stay on tonight, and if you have questions going through here, ask them. But if there, as Derek stated, if there are motions made, you're not a voting member yet. So we look forward to having you as part of the committee going forward here. All right, on to deliberations for this evening. On the docket, I have Town Hall, Police, and Fire. And I know we got an updated sheet based on the select board discussion. I'm not sure if Selectman Lemay wanted to talk about what happened on that side, or Derek wanted to just give a quick overview.
If it's all right with Selectman Lemay, I have a really brief overview just to kind of bring the budget committee members up to speed on what the select board did. And then if you want to go into the town hall, police and fire after that, we've got department heads online that are happy to answer questions that you might have.
Nicole, that's fine by me.
I'm sorry, I cut out for a sec. I didn't hear what Derek said.
So I'm going to do a quick presentation, and Selectman Lemay is okay with that.
Awesome. All right.
Okay, so I'm hoping everybody can see that. So just so budget committees, just to bring the members back up to speed, but department heads presented jointly this year to both budget committee and the select board at the same time. When the department heads put their budgets together, we were very aware of the current situation with COVID and some of the uncertainties. And I think if you talk to each individual department head, they really made a big effort to budget for what we needed rather than what we wanted. I believe the select board saw this as well. And so what they did is they did not make significant changes to the department head budget. There was one correction in town hall, but what the select board made the decision to do was to use fund balance to lessen the impact of any increases to the appropriation. Before we get into that, I just wanted to show you the last 12 years of operating budgets, because I think this really goes to what we as department heads were trying to do and what we're kind of up against. But this is a history of 2009 to 2020. The orange down at the bottom is what we call our tax effort. This is how much that we have to collect in taxes every year. The green is the general fund appropriation. So this is our general fund portion of the operating budget, plus any special articles that are approved at town meeting. So just so budget committee members have an idea, and the reason we're doing 2009 is we did a changeover of our financial system in 2013, and we have history back to 2008, but that was our first year of converted data, and there are a couple issues with some of the converted data, but the data pretty much from 2009 to 2013 is rather accurate. So we went back to what we had in the system. If you look at the general fund appropriation, that has gone up an annual average of 1.8%. The total town tax effort, the amount that we collect in taxes for the town side, has gone up 1.45%, the average annually. And during the same time, inflation, the annual average is 1.85%. So right now, the general fund appropriation is not even keeping up with inflation as department heads get tasked with continuing to work on projects and move things forward. Throughout the 12 years, we've had multiple CBAs with 4 different unions in town. In 2013, the state legislature made a change to the state's contribution to police and fire retirement. Prior to 2013, the state paid for 35% of fire and police retirement. Now the town carries that full freight. Fire Station 18, we had the renovation and addition project there. We've had DPW building addition and water project. The sports complex and the fire department has changed over to 24/7 coverage during that time. This has been through use of fund balance. This has been done through the use of different grants. And also part partnering with some of the other funds that we have, whether it be the Parks and Rec revolving fund or some other items. For this year, here's 2021. The select board again made a decision to move forward with the proposed budget that the department heads provided them. The general fund appropriation, including all special articles, is just over $22 million. We'll get into those in a minute. That's a 3.7% increase over 2020. And while that increase might seem large, when you look at some of the years where we were where we fell behind, that's when some of our capital projects actually got pushed out, and we were forced to extend the life of some of our capital, some of our vehicles, or some of our capital infrastructure even longer. So that is kind of, because you'll see when we get to CIP that we make up some of those. Again, the town tax effort is only up 0.85. Oh, let me, hold on. Talking with my hands. The total town tax effort is only up 0.85% over 2020. And with the estimated increase that we anticipate in valuation for new construction, that would be a level tax rate going forward. So this is what the select board have handed off to you. Now, just looking at the operating budget, we have default budget, and you'll see this in your packets. We provide you the department head level, the default level, as well as the select board level. The general fund portion of the operating budget, it includes the $500,000 increase to the road plan that was voted at town meeting, increases to insurance and New Hampshire retirement, as well as those contractual CBA wages. The general fund budget for the select board includes those three items, as well as there was one correction in elections to reduce a line that was incorrect. That was discussed when I presented to both the select board and budget committee. And there's also a wage matrix adjustment and step increases for non-union employees included in there, as well as a handful of other items across other departments that were highlighted in our budget presentations. The select board voted to offset the increase with $600,000 of projected surplus from this year that department heads believe that we will have based on changes of service that were required in response to COVID. And then also $1.4 million from fund balance at 2021 tax rate setting. So that's how we would get to a municipal tax rate of $8.24 per thousand versus default, not using that unassigned fund balance, would be 8.91, which would be an increase over this year. The select board is putting forward a handful of special articles. The fire apparatus capital reserve fund. When this was presented to the budget committee and select board, it was presented as $300,000. That has been reduced to $250,000 deposit from unassigned fund balance. And that would have no tax impact in 2021. And because it's a capital reserve fund, kind of like a savings fund, that's going to reduce the potential tax impact in future years when large apparatus at the fire department need to be replaced. We also have the Grassmere Town Hall Capital Reserve Fund. This would be $100,000, and this would be the third and final deposit into that fund. Police CBAs, we have $1 placeholders for both of those. We are finalizing those negotiations with both of those groups, and we'll have those to present to the select board and the budget committee. The FEMA Safer Grant, this is a 100% grant from FEMA for 4 additional firefighters. This is the fire chief is on with you and can answer any questions or speak more to that, but that would have no tax impact. Crispin House is a $20,000 request, and Main Street was reduced by the select board, but they voted unanimously to move forward with a $15,000 request. So I think that's really a summary of where we are. And what talking with Cole, if it's the budget committee's desire, we can go through line by line, department head by department head, if that's what the budget committee wants to do.
Great. Any questions off the top?
I have a couple questions, Cole.
Yep, go for it.
Sorry, I don't mean to if you guys have already covered this in earlier meetings, just tell me and I'll deal with it
No,
offline. But
so just for background, Elizabeth, we've had presentations from department heads, but we've just done the school budget thus far
okay.
for deliberations. Yep.
So I have a couple of questions about the unreserved fund balance. So I listened to your guys' meeting, the selectmen's meeting, and I'm not sure if I'm talking to Derek or Mark, but I listened to you guys' meeting on the Monday before Thanksgiving, and you guys were talking about that amount, and it was up to 14% or $7 million. How did that get so high? Because normally it hovers around 4.5 million, maybe hits 5 million.
Yeah, so if I can bring up a quick chart here, let me see if I can do a view in full screen for the benefit of Elizabeth as well as the other committee members. It will show a little bit of the history of it. But basically, fund balance is, let me share the screen first. All right. And I don't know if people can see. Let's see if I can make it a little bit bigger. So our fund balance back in 2010 was just under $4 million. And this is when the select board at the time was working to build that back up. This was right after Mother's Day floods. They saw the importance of that. We were starting to get into, some tight times with the recession at that time. So we were down just above what the select board's target is of about 8%. And that has grown over time to when we set tax rate this fall, we were at about $7 million. Fund balance is built up. It's built up in two different ways. One can be when the town underspends its appropriation. Every year when town meeting approves the budget, we're given funds, and when there are savings in expense lines, that typically at the end of the year, that unexpended portion of the budget that is not encumbered, that goes back into the general fund balance. It's called unassigned fund balance because there are different types of fund balance. There are assigned fund balance that's for some of those encumbered POs that we have a contract for that jump in from one year to another. But so it's unexpended funds, but it's also for when we get in revenue that is greater than we anticipated. Historically, my experience has been working as the finance director in 2017 and 2018, and then Danielle in 2019 and 2020. And also looking back at the history, we have projected revenues conservatively because we do that to avoid a potential spike at tax rate setting time. If we all of a sudden say, oh, we were very aggressive with our revenues, then you might be forced to raise the tax rate higher than you calculated. So I think we've been pretty conservative in some of our revenue estimations. So when revenues come in higher than we anticipate, or in a handful of cases when we're able to seek out grants that are not included in the anticipated revenues, those funds go into the fund balance. So that's really, it's by underspending our appropriation and over collecting on our revenues. Over time, we've built that fund balance up to about just over $7 million. Now, that doesn't mean we have a bank account with $7 million sitting in it, because some of that fund balance is uncollected taxes and some other things that are out there that don't get realized. And as things happen, the auditor will change the category of those. But that's basically what the fund balance is. Does that answer the question?
Pretty much. I guess I'm still just puzzled why we have so overshot the target on that. And why, I guess, and not just maybe this year, but in past years. I mean, if we're over collecting by that much, I would think that the selectmen would always be using more funds to offset the tax rate.
And I think they have in the years past. They've used that for special articles to fund the capital reserve funds, whether it be the land acquisition, the fire apparatus, or Grassmere. They've used that for increases to the road fund. But we do need to maintain a level of fund balance because, as you may be aware, we collect taxes on behalf of the school and the county. If people are late on paying their taxes, or if something, this year our tax bills are due on December 18th. We actually have about a $2 million payment to the county. Danielle, you can correct me, but my guess it's probably on the 17th that we have to pay out to the county about $2 million for what their collection is. We pay the school regularly. So we do need to maintain a fund balance to basically, we control that cash flow for not only the town, but also the school and the county.
Okay, and then my other question is then, so 1.4 million is being used in this budget, which would lower the fund balance to what, 5.6 roughly, which is still a very healthy, that's still going to take you over the 8% target, which is fine. It's fine to have a little stocked away for a rainy day. But that 1.4 million, is that being used for one-time purchases out of the budget, or is it going into general operating expenses?
They are using it to offset the taxes in the fall. So they are promising to use that. So rather than pull out one-time expenses from CIP and put them into special articles and use fund balance, instead, they left those in the operating budget and they chose to dedicate $1.4 million. So is it being used to offset operating, or is it being used to offset capital? I mean, both the capital purchases as well as the operating remain in the operating budget this year.
Okay. So my only concern with that is that then next year, when you don't have 1.4 million to offset that tax rate, you're going to get a big spike.
There's definitely that concern with CIP. I don't know what the CIP, the exact number is for next year. That's, I guess, we can look at the CIP matrix, but that is something that I think we continue to battle with, is that wave of CIP that continues to get pushed out. But this year, the select board made the decision to keep the fund balance within the operating budget rather than to pull out project by project and put those out to their own special article.
Okay. Okay.
Great.
Cole, I have a question.
Yep.
Just to start out. My question is regarding the SAFER grant. So if I remember right, when we approved it, it was kind of a tiered amount, a grant that gave a certain amount each year, and it would slowly be less and less money over time. How come it's at 180,600 when the total is, if I remember right, it's around 270,000. So are the taxpayers picking up the extra 130,000 that we don't see there, or?
Well,
I guess I'm wondering where the status of that, the SAFER grant is.
So I'll lean on the fire chief in a second, but the SAFER grant that was approved at town meeting in 2019 allowed hiring of 4 additional firefighters. And there's a grant share on that. The fire chief can explain that. Those 4 positions actually live now within the operating budget. They fall under the fire department, the wages. This proposed special article is another round of SAFER grants, and I'll turn it over to Chief Allard to kind of explain that.
Good evening, everyone. Joe, thank you for your question. So this year, FEMA, so in 2020, FEMA kind of changed the SAFER grant opportunity, where in the past, you are correct, it used to be a kind of a shared grant, whether it's a 75-25 split for a couple of years, and then it definitely goes up after that. So the grant opportunity for 2020 is 100% funded by FEMA for 3 years. No impact to the town, where we would have an opportunity to hire 4 employees for those 3 years and reduce our overtime line and part-time wage lines for at least 3 years. And after that, it would certainly have to go to the voters in the operating budget at that point in time.
So to be clear, we added four positions in 2019, and that this Safer Grant's going to add another 4 positions to your current staff.
So I just want to clarify, because this part can get confusing, so I just want to go kind of slow through it. So on a day-to-day basis, and I do have a video up on this on GTV, just to plug it, that explains this. So on a day-to-day basis within Goffstown Fire Department, we have 6 people working, 3 at each station. 4 of those are full-time employees. 2 of them are part-time. So with this grant opportunity, if we were successful on a day-to-day basis, we would not go above the number of 6. So it would stay at 3 at both stations. What would change is we would have 5 full-time employees, 1 part-time employee. So our labor costs would shift and actually go down.
Are we seeing a corresponding decrease in the part-time line to come with this grant, the Safer Grant?
If we were to be successful, we would. The exact number, the 180,000, is that the question?
So my question is, would you see us cutting the part-time line by 180,000 because we have the Safer Grant and adding that for 4 new positions?
Okay, great question. I can't say it would be exact because as full-time people take days off, we still have to provide the same level of service to the community. So we would typically backfill those first openings with part-time rather than on overtime with full-time people. So it would be a lower number. I can't give you the exact number because I don't know when someone's going to take a day off.
Okay, and when the Safer Grant expires, those 4 positions, I mean, we're not going to get rid of them once we get them, right? I mean,
So that would have to be a very good question. As I mentioned, that would go into our operating budget, and that would have to be approved by the town at that voting time.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome.
Great. Any further questions before we dive into the budget? All right. Hearing none, we'll start off with Town Hall on page 1 and go through things the same way we went through the school side of the budget. So if you have a question, just unmute and make sure to identify the line number that you'd like to ask about. All right. So without further ado, thank you for putting it up there, Derek. Any questions on page 1?
Seeing none?
Yeah. Any questions on page 1 here? All right. We'll move on to page 2. Questions on page 2? Page 2. Hearing none, we'll move on. Page 3. Questions on page 3? I have a question on the travel expenses underneath tax collection, 44,800. It appears, based in the select board budget, like the budget is going up, based on the present year. Is there a reason for that? Underneath tax collection, travel expenses.
I can speak to
Sorry,
that, Cole, if.
Yeah, go ahead, Danielle. I didn't know how to unmute myself when I'm sharing screen.
Good evening, everyone. In case you're not familiar, I'm Danielle Besor. I'm the finance director here in town. The reason for the travel expense going up in the tax collector's line was because the tax collector has a new deputy tax collector this year. So she's looking to send her to the annual training that the State Tax Association typically holds. And it is up north, a couple hours away. So they tend to have travel-related expenses, but they would have to bring that request to the board before they actually sign up for those classes.
Great, thank you. Further questions on page 3?
Cole, it's Mark. Got a question.
Yep.
On line 44,300, either Danielle or Derek, can you tell me how many people we have currently working on their professional development skills? I noticed that number's gone up a little bit.
I'm sorry, Mark, can you repeat which line it is, the professional development and finance?
It's the employee development. I'm sorry, Danielle. I misphrased myself. It's line 44,300, the employee development.
Under tax?
In finances.
Oh, in finance, okay.
Yep. I noticed
So
the number's gone up a little bit. I do know we're using that to the advantage to build our staff and to make the place a better place to work.
Yep.
Currently, how many people do we have taking advantage of that in the situation we're in?
So there's an employee development line within each department. The line you're looking at there has actually gone down $5,000 from the 2020 budget. We do have one individual who is enrolled in a master's program right now. And so that program is coming to wrap up in 2021. So the amount has gone down by the 5,000. However, there are additional training and development items in there for the Munis software that is available to all of our Munis users across town.
Thank you.
Great. Further questions on page 3? Hearing none, we'll move on to page 4.
I have one on page 4, information technology, regular wages. That's a pretty big jump.
Yes, so we had a reorganization in that office. Earlier this year, we had one system administrator with 3 IT help desk techs. With the amount of strain that was put on that office this year with helping all of the departments townwide work remotely, as well as supporting some of the different committees and also some of the projects, we felt there was one individual that was doing more than the IT help desk. So we made an adjustment to change the title of one individual in that department.
To what?
To a second IT system administrator. So it'd be a 2-tiered IT system administrators with 2 IT help desk techs. Again, no additional bodies in that office, just shifting some of the additional responsibilities around.
That also included an increase in hours for that individual.
Further questions on page 4? Hearing none, move on to page 5. Questions on page 5?
Hey, this is Jeff O'Brien. Noticing under planning, zoning, and econ dev, the economic development line 63,150, budgeted around $5,000 past couple years, but actuals are significantly less, around $500 or so, and we're still budgeting $5,000 for that.
So I would say that I do know that the economic and development line, they do have in 2019, at the end of 2019, they did work with UNH Cooperative out of the Hillsborough County office to do some economic development work. And because of the constraints of COVID, they were not able to undertake some of that work. And it's my understanding that the Economic Development Council wants to continue some of those projects as they move forward. So again, I think it's the reason you see at least the 2019s were probably not spent because when it goes into an encumbered PO at the end of the year, it's no longer pulled in as a 2019 actual. And then 2020 year-to-dates are down simply because of the change of operations that EDC was forced to undertake.
All right. Further questions on page 5?
Yes.
Yep, Fred.
I noticed the drop department head request on Conservation Commission expense, 57600. And I'm not objecting to a drop. I just want an explanation of what caused it.
Yes, because of some of the great work that we've seen with the Glen Lake Watershed Association, as well as Namaski Lake Association, over the past few years, Conservation Commission has provided a local match to some of the state grants for milfoil treatment. And over the last 3 or 4 years, we've actually just seen a reduction in the local match for those milfoil projects. So that reduction reflects that change.
Great. Any other questions on page 5? Hearing none, we'll move on to page 6.
I have one on page 6 under Human Services. So it looks like we've been jumping back and forth between a full-time person, then we went to a part-time person. Now we're going to go back to a full-time person, although those aren't really full-time wages. Is that what's going on with that?
So we have had different delivery models for that. We did have that as we had that as a full-time portion of one person's wages at Town Hall. That employee retired. At that time, we changed over to part-time wages. And we had a part-time person come in, and when that part-time person departed, there was another full-time employee that was interested in the position, personality and skill set fit it. So we provided them with, rather than using part-time hours, we switched back to provide them some additional hours And that's why you're seeing it in the full-time wage line. That's accounts to, and Danielle, maybe you can correct me, is that about 5 hours a week that we're dedicating to that position?
At this point, the hours vary from week to week, of course, based on caseload. The amount you're seeing budgeted there is 2.5 hours per week plus a flat weekly stipend. And that's why you're seeing it much lower as an impact on this year's budget versus even when it was just a part-time position.
Okay. And I have to say, I'm surprised about the direct assistance housing line. I mean, that seems lower to me than it has in past years, the actuals, not the budgeted amount, but the actuals. And I'm surprised how consistent they are between 2019 and 2020.
So of course it does depend on what we experience in town. However, our group is dedicated to helping match people up with programs that can assist them long-term, where the town is really only an interim assistance. So it just depends on how many people apply and what their specific needs are, whether or not they need that assistance or if they're looking for direction to other programs. But we do provide a full application process for each individual.
And if I could just mention also, just recall in 2020 that the governor's emergency orders stopped evictions for the majority of the year, as well as electrical shutoffs and some of the other things in response to COVID. So we may not have seen necessarily as many applicants in 2020 as that was actually out there.
Okay.
Further questions on page 6 here? All right, Derek, the insurance line on the next page, is that still under town hall?
That represents the unemployment, workers' comp, and health and dental insurance for everyone town-wide. But okay. With Danielle and I would be happy to answer any questions committee members might have.
All right. So any questions on page 7 or back on page 6 or anywhere in the town hall?
Page 7 isn't showing.
Oh, there. All right. Any questions?
Just one last quick one, Derek. So that shift in retirement, is that the final downshift from the state? Or is that an adjustment based on, an underfunded system?
So the 35% shift for fire and police that I mentioned earlier, that was done in 2013. At this point, the town pays 100% of the employer contribution for employees, for police, and for fire. There was a change because the New Hampshire retirement system had to reduce their assumed rate of return. There was an increase in retirement rates this year for employer retirement rates this year. The school did a great job presenting this, but basically the employer rate went up about 25% for each of those, for employees, fire, and police. So there is a major increase in retirement across the board this year.
Okay, but we were already paying 100%.
Since 2013.
For several years, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So this was just the employer rate. Just every 2 years they change it based on what they're seeing for their rate of return on their investments.
Okay.
All right. If we're all good there, I would say let's move on to police, page 8. That'll be 8, 9, and 10 here. So
Hey Cole, I have a general question
yeah, go.
about the police budget for the chief. Hi Chief, I don't know if I saw you yet.
Hi, Joe.
My question is regarding the new comfort dog that we got
Yes.
for the town, and I understand it was donated by the Goffstown Police Association, but I'm wondering what the upkeep for the animal looks like and what kind of costs that the town is going to experience while the dog is in our possession.
So that's a great question. We've kind of looked at it, and I don't have the exact number right in front of me, Joe, but we were looking at it as roughly under about $2,000 a year. So that's including the vet. So the vet has donated the services, but we have to pay for the actual like vaccinations and things of that nature. But between the insurance that we're going to have on her and a few other things, it's under about $2,000. So that will be with some of the if we need a new pen for her, if we need some toys. It's substantially cheaper than what a patrol dog would cost the town. So we've budgeted for that for this year, but I'm saying under 2,000. It's somewhere right around there, because I remember we got somewhere right around about 1,200 when we were really putting the numbers together, and that wasn't with all the extra, if we need a new collar or a harness or something of that nature. I appreciate the question, but again, we're putting it out there. It's new to us, and we're trying to blaze the path here. But that's kind of where we're at as far as the estimation.
And just to follow up, did we approve like the purchase or the increase of the 2,000 per year last year? Is that going to be out of which line is that money coming out of?
So my understanding is we use that out of, when we've ever used our dog, patrol dogs, we always took it out of employee development, which we've added some money in there for that. And we also have our animal expenses, but that's usually geared more towards the kennel and kind of what we do over there. So that's kind of where my understanding is where we take that money out of.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Great. So we're on page 8. If folks have questions on page 8 or have other questions for the chief. All right. Any questions on page 8 here? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to page 9. Questions on page 9? Any questions on page 9? All right. Hearing none, we'll move on to page 10. Any questions on page 10 here? Questions on page 10 or anywhere else in the police budget here before we move on?
Sorry, I have one more on police communications, the overtime pay. That's jumping around quite a bit, but in the last couple of years.
So that's on page 9, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's page 9, line in police communications, 41300.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for that question. Yes, so what you'll see is, and I'm going to pull up a number real quick for you. Part of the increase, are you asking about why it's jumping around or what the increase is?
All of the above. And I mean, I know we always have to have some overtime pay, but $92,000 in 2019, that's a full-time position almost.
Well, Elizabeth, I think part of the problem is you'll see the history. So I went back, when I looked at this number, I went back into our history, and we went from, and I'll just give some real quick numbers. In 14, we budgeted for 55,000, we spent 75. In 15, we budgeted for 67, we spent 84. In 16, we spent 67 and we spent 74. In 17, we budgeted for 62 and we went 84. And it just keeps going. So in 18, we budgeted for 69, we spent 89. 19, we're at 77, we did 92. And right now we're budgeted for 78 and we're about 73, well, give or take, we're about 73,000. Here's the problem. We have a dispatch center that's a regional dispatch center. We dispatch for 9 different departments, including fire, police, and ambulance. So that's Ware, New Boston, Goffstown, and Dumbarton. And the problem is we always need somebody in those seats. And we usually have 8 to 9 operators that work in there. But when we constantly lose them due to either pay issues, staff, other issues that come up, better quality of life at different agencies, they leave us, and then we're constantly trying to fill those positions with overtime. So yeah, you'll see that $92,000 is a full-time position, but that $92,000 covers any training costs, any holiday pay, any contractual obligations we have, plus covering open shifts. And I will tell you, it's been a long haul these last few years of us always being short-staffed and trying to retain our people. So what you're seeing, Elizabeth, is us constantly either giving them the holiday pay or some trainings they go to, but also covering the shifts. That's the majority of what we're seeing. And last year was a tough year for dispatch, as the year before. And hopefully this year, crossing my fingers, we're fully staffed on paper, and I'm hoping that we're going to stay that way for a while. The increase you're seeing right now is me looking at some of the averages that we've seen over the past 10 years to try to keep it more in the middle than overexpending. But also we have the CBA that might go up slightly this year, so I want to make sure that I'm covering some of that too. I hope that answers it a little bit.
That does. I just wonder, and Mark, maybe you can chime in here a little bit. I mean, bearing in mind that when we pay overtime, we're paying time and a half. And if this is really, I mean, you're always going to have some for holiday pay and everything else. But if this is a retention issue, then have the selectmen discussed whether we are paying our existing staff a competitive salary?
I will tell you that we're in negotiations right now, and that is the topic of conversation as we speak. The union and the board or the town is talking about that, and the main point they're trying to make is pay. So I'm hoping that the town can come to an agreement with the union, and I can tell you that it looks like we're in a really good spot as far as the negotiations, and both sides have really done their research on fair market value for our employees.
Okay.
Cole, can I add to that?
Yep, good.
As the chief said, Elizabeth, last year was a very hard year for him. He had a couple of retirements. He had a lot of people that were out sick. It just overall for the year, it was just a bad year for him. We, the Board of Selectmen, have given the chief recommendations. We're working with him now to try to solve some of those problems. Hopefully, with the new contract that's coming up, we will be able to alleviate some of the overtime. We may make adjustments on the staffing, not the staffing, but the pay of the employee. We're on a constant circle that just continually goes around and around. We may be the highest pay in the area, but next month, Bedford gets a new contract. The next month after that, Londonderry gets a new contract, and we're now back down to the bottom. So as people move around the state of New Hampshire for dispatchers, we also, we're in that mode that we lose dispatchers to go to other departments. Other departments, they love to get somebody that's trained. The chief can attest to that as well. It takes a lot of money and valuable time away. We can take that person and put them in the hot seat a lot quicker and a lot faster. I will say that the select board is very well aware of what the chief is up against, not only in the fact that the radio dispatch communication center, but also on the police side, the police officers. I don't remember what the number of people were this year, but we had a significant number of people go to other departments outside of Goffstown, and they're working. If they were making, I'll say $21 an hour here, they left to go to someplace that was $24, $25 an hour. And I mean, the rate continually goes up. So it just looks better all around. And that's what they're looking for. They're looking for the money. Hopefully that'll answer some of that question.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, may I interject? This is Fred Platt. I dropped out for a minute, came back on because Cisco WebEx meetings froze on me.
Great, thank you. And I also see that Jared has joined us. So for the minutes, that's 8:10 p.m. And then Fred, can you just go back on mute? Thank you. Any further discussion? Page 8, 9, 10 for police. All right. Hearing none. Thank you very much, Chief, for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And we'll move on to fire in page 11 here. All right, so any questions on page 11 in fire?
Yeah, Cole, I have a question. Just regular wages full-time under fire operations chief. I mean, we're looking at $300,000 increase. Is that the current SAFER grant that the voters already approved, or is this the $180,000 grant that you're hoping to pass this year with the payment through the unassigned fund balance? And if that's the case, are we going to see a corresponding decrease in the part-time line?
Thank you for the question, Joe. So that increase does not include the 180,000. That is our current wage lines through CBAs and the increases that our town administrator talked about earlier with the retirement system.
So hold on, so it's not in the retirement line, it's in the regular wages line? That's what confuses me about it. So what's in the retirement fire line?
So Joe,
there's an increase there as well.
So the wages full-time, that includes those 4 additional firefighters that were approved in 2019. That the town is still receiving FEMA revenue for that, for the grant for that. Every year we do receive revenue for that, and we have that on the revenue side.
And I want to say thank you, Derek. I want to say the offsetting is $235,000 off the top of my head.
Can you just repeat that, Chief?
Sure, I'm sorry. So the offsetting revenue on that line item for 2020 would be $235,000. That's just off the top of my head.
And to be clear, that's a one-time, that expires this year, correct? The money from the SAFER grant?
It does not. So
it goes down though.
It does. Yep. In 2021, it goes down to a 65%. The town would have to pick up with that. that particular year versus 25 this year.
But Joe, and for other budget committee members, the full cost to the firefighters you will see in the operating budget. What will happen is the revenue side will be reduced. As the FEMA grant pays less, we have to appropriate the full amount for the full firefighters. So that lives in there. And I think you see that jump in 2019 up to the 2021. You see that's part of that is those 4 additional firefighters, as well as contractual wage increases.
I mean, personally, I have a problem with just the revenues offsetting only for a temporary time. And then after that, the taxpayers need to pick up that burden. And the question is do we really need, 4 more firefighters on top of the ones we already have without a corresponding decrease in the part-time line? So that's my only comment.
I have the same concern, Joe, but if you look at the line, the overtime line right below, I mean, that's a significant expense. And that's not an efficient way to pay people is overtime. So we're better off hiring staff and paying them at regular wages than being understaffed and trying to cover that with overtime shifts.
Elizabeth, thank you for that point. And, certainly I think everyone can appreciate this year, 2020. And at the fire department, we do all the ambulance service as well. And we need to make sure that, first and foremost, our employees are safe. And responding to every call this year is much different than it was last year. Just in our operational approach, we really need to keep, when I talk about those 6 people, 3 at each of our stations, you really need those 3 people to go on every single call to make sure that we're responding safe to, we go into each and every call anticipating we're dealing with a COVID patient. So it's absolutely changed our operations.
Chief, could you tell me what percentage of our existing firefighters are also EMT certified?
100%.
100%. Okay.
Hey, Chief, can you explain the big difference in the part-time wages versus the budget to actuals?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for the question. I'm sorry, I didn't catch you ask the question.
Sorry, this is Jeff O'Brien. At the year-to-date 2020 on part-time wages versus budget, obviously there's a considerable, almost looks like a little over $100,000 difference, with only 2 months left in the year at the time of this snapshot, and we're still budgeting the same amount going forward.
Thank you, Jeff, for the question. So I'll answer it. There's 2 parts to that. One, we have certainly our part-time workforce with the outbreak of COVID-19. Many people made the personal decision not to come in and work to keep their families safe. So hence the overtime does go up. And 2, the reason why it's level funded, Jeff, is what meeting with the finance director, we noticed that our part-time EMS hours, a lot of those people, we used to have many people who were EMS only, so be on the ambulance only. Our employee has changed to where many more now, as Joe just asked, have both fire and EMS experience. So we need to properly budget for those. So we have a shift in 2021 over to that fire side. That's why we level funded it. And if we were to review the EMS side, you would see a decrease on that side.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
You're welcome, Joe.
All right, we're still on page 11 here. So I have more questions. All right, hearing none, we'll move on to 12. questions on 12? Chief, the jump in facility maintenance, 53,460. What's the driving cost there?
We're actually going down for next year.
I'm looking at 2020 budget 9806, and then 2021 13,914.97.
I'm sorry, Cole. You're looking at line 53,250?
53,460.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yep, give me 1 second. So, Cole, so in that, we actually added some preventative maintenance to the building contract, so such as our overhead doors. We never had those maintained every year. So we want to make sure that our doors open properly. We've had some work done to those. And two, we have what they call a Climo vent system. So that helps get all of the exhaust from our ambulances and engines out of the building. Those have never been serviced since they've been installed, since this station was built. And we're actually getting some diesel soot into our administrative area now. So those are kind of two big priorities that we need to add into the budget for next year.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Further questions on page 12? Or it's the last page for fire. So many questions under fire here. All right, hearing none, that would wrap up our deliberations for tonight. Is there anything any members want to discuss?
Cole, when were you planning to discuss CIP and revenue for those departments?
Great question. So plan would be for next meeting to go through Public Works, Parks and Rec, and Library. Judging by how fast we went tonight, we might be able to incorporate CIP into that next meeting on the 8th. And then wrap up.
Motion to adjourn?
Quickly, for folks, as I said, next meeting, we'll go through those next 3 sections here. If we'll touch on CIP, I'll make sure that that's in the agenda. For folks, and make sure to sign for Elizabeth's appointment when that either gets emailed out or can sign in person in Catherine's office. All right. So next meeting is December 8th, 7 p.m. Derek, is there anything else that we need to touch on?
No, we will send out the form for all budget committee members to sign electronically for Elizabeth's appointment. And I mean, I guess the last thing is, depending on how the budget committee wants to handle it, we do have the fire chief and police chief and myself on now. I don't think we have a majority of CIP projects. So if you wanted to go through fire, admin, and police CIP projects tonight, we could do that real quick. Or we can be prepared for next week.
I'm fine discussing that now. We're at 8:23 here, so I think we got a little bit of time. Derek, do you have a page number?
Page 22.
Great. So So we'll go to page 22. Skylar, can you just mute? I think you're echoing there. All right, so Derek has page 22 up on the screen now. Great, thank you. So under CIP here, we have, so if there's anything under police operations or fire operations that folks have questions about.
Can we just hear a little bit about the renovations at the police station?
Is that Elizabeth?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Are you talking about the women's locker room I've been kind of talking about for this last couple of meetings?
Oh, if you already covered it in other meetings, then don't cover it specially for me.
No,
I can just review it. I can go back and watch the GTV.
Please let me just I would like to reiterate it because it's really important. I had originally put in CIP a placeholder for the women's locker room rehab, but it came in under 25,000. We're running about $12,000, so I put in my operations line. Really, what I'd like to just kind of present to you, Elizabeth, is we have 6 women in our agency, and our locker room for them is really not that big. I think they have basically with the lockers in the locker room, they're changing in about a 8x4, maybe 10x4 space. There's not a lot of space at all, and quite frankly, when we had a funeral for Steve Tower in the past, we had all 6 women there trying to change, and 2 of them were standing out in the hallway waiting. And I think it's really unacceptable that we're at this point and we really need to fix it. So I've kind of come up with a plan to move 2 sergeants out of an office and put all 4 of our sergeants in one office and take over their office and add about, I think it's like 100 square feet of space for the women to have some more changing space. So that's kind of where I'm at. It's about 12,000 with the new furniture and the construction.
Okay, so that's 6 officers is what, a fifth of your force? Little less than a fifth?
We're 30. We're supposed to be 31. So yeah, 6 is a pretty big increase.
Okay. So the 25,000 that's in CIP for improvement expenses, police operations, so are you saying that's not there? That got moved into your maintenance line? So yes, because when I originally presented this, I didn't have a number. And I told the chairman of the CIP committee that I would come back and either, if it was over 25, I'd give him the number. And if it was under, I'd put it in my operating line. So okay. When I presented to both boards before, it's in my facilities line. That's where the increase in that facilities went up. Okay, so the only thing you have in CIP are your 3 police vehicles.
Yes, ma'am.
Which is on the yearly rotation. That's
yes.
a long established cycle.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Correct.
And fire doesn't have anything, right?
I'm not seeing anything there for fire. Oh. All right. Derek, is there anything I'm missing here other than the 3 vehicles?
Question.
Yep, Fred.
When I was on CIP, there was always something for fire with for future equipment. I don't see any of that.
So yep. So the select board has approved a special article to deposit $250,000 into the fire apparatus capital reserve fund from fund balance. That would not show up in your detail here because this is your operating budget. But if you do go to page 3 of the stapled reports, you will see the $250,000 there for the capital reserve fund. So
Thank you.
it lives in a different location.
And Chief Howard, what's the current balance in that fund?
Give me 1 minute, unless the finance director has it quicker.
I do.
She would. Thank you, Danielle.
The current balance in the capital reserve fund for the fire department, the fire apparatus is $644,275.61.
Thank you. All right. Derek, is there anything that we're missing there?
No, I don't have anything else.
Great. All right. So next meeting, as I said, time, same place, on December 8th, 7 p.m. And we'll start off with Public Works, Parks and Rec, and Library. And then we'll see where we're at from there. All right. So if there's no more discussion, Fred, I'll entertain a motion. Or anyone can make a motion.
Motion to
Say
adjourn.
yes at once. I'll make the motion. Second Fred's motion.
All right. I heard Richard Manzo make a motion there, and then Selectman Lemay down as the second for a motion to adjourn. Any discussion? All right. Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Skylar.
Yes.
Thank you. Bill Cordis.
Yes.
Greg Flegel.
Yes, agreed.
Joe.
Yes.
Eileen. Jeff. Jeff O'Brien. Fred Platt.
I have to ask if this is a motion to adjourn that's being acted on. Cisco keeps freezing on me and I have to drop out and come back in. The answer is yes.
Yes, it is a motion to adjourn. Thank you. Dennis isn't here. I vote yes. Spencer Diaz isn't here. Richard Manzo.
Yes.
Jared Talbot.
Yes.
Thank you. Selectman Lemay.
Yes, sir.
Lemay. Thank you. And Richard Fletcher.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. We're unanimous. See you all next week.